Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Herlock of AA Shop Marketing. Our hope is to unite shop owners to tackle common stress points and challenges that they're experiencing within the auto repair shop space. Our mission is to guide you towards the best solutions for your shop. So tune in, join the conversation, and let's move your business forward. Welcome to the Garage Grit Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Herlock of AA Shop Marketing. And today's topic is it's very relevant because a lot of people right now are talking about trying to find or attract great talent. And so I wanted to talk about how to retain the talent that you have, specifically the top talent. And what that might actually include in our discussion, it might actually end up including realizing when to let go of certain talent or lack of talent so that we have the optimal team for our customer base. Because in the end, it's all about people. It's about the customers as well as the employees. When we were talking to a handful of people to be considered for being on the panel, the one woman, bless her heart, she was like, yeah, I'm 9 months pregnant, so I probably am not a good fit. so, okay, then, maybe down the road. But we have to remember that while we're trying to talk about strategy of dealing with employees and top talent, we're still also dealing with people who have their own stuff going on in their lives, right? And we have to apply that to customers too. And Sean, you were just talking a moment ago about when you were working in the food industry, you didn't feel like you were serving your best interest. And that also plays into retaining that top talent. How are we helping them with their career path, whatever that might be? And all of that, I think, comes into play. And we are going to have a third shop owner join us momentarily. But for now, I'd like to introduce our guests, our panelists today. We've got Brian from Rooney's Auto in Iowa. And we've got Sean Blockland from All American in Colorado. And shortly, we're going to have Kendall from A1 in Nebraska. And what's interesting about the three of you, there's different size shops going on. There's different dynamics as far as the population densities and the markets. And so I think we're going to be able to talk a little bit about what things are working in different spaces, but also what actually might work going forward. And so, Kendall, thanks for joining. Glad you're with us this morning or afternoon now.
Can y'all hear me? I'm sorry. I was a little bit late getting to the party here.
No worries. Glad to have you with us. So let's just do a real quick round robin about your background, each one of you. So say your name, say your shop name, give a description of maybe your shop size.
Sure.
You can do that if you want by car count or by number of bays, or you can do that by the square footage, whatever you prefer to describe it. And I don't know, what got you into this space in the first place, in this auto repair shop ownership space in the first place? So Brian, why don't you start us off, give a little bit of your background, and then we'll move on to Sean and then Kendall.
Sure.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah. So I'm Brian Rooney. I own Rooney's Auto and Tire Center in Emmitsburg, Iowa. Our shop is 6 bays. I've got 3 full-time techs. We do a lot of tires. We do a lot of auto repair. I got into the auto repair world by accident, I guess I would say. I didn't grow up around mechanically inclined people. I didn't have the off-road riding stuff like Sean had growing up. So out of high school, I just got put under the wing of a guy that was the dad of one of my wife's friends. He showed me how to turn wrenches. I went to tech school. I did my own shop a couple of times, about 3 years each time. Lots of ways not to do it. I don't say that I failed at any of those. Lots of ways how not to do it.
What inspired you, Brian? What inspired you to go from mechanic to owner?
I had worked at a couple of shops where I felt like I could give more. And being a technician, I don't know, maybe I felt like I wanted to run the show and have more input in how we operated. So yeah, I think that's why I decided to go to owner. Maybe I thought I could make a bunch more money as an owner than I could as a technician, which I'm learning that's not necessarily true all the time. But yeah, so I'm on my 3rd round of shop ownership. This time we just had our 5-year anniversary. Things are going great. I'm looking forward to talking about retaining your top talent, seeing what you guys have to say about that. I know I have my ideas about maybe what works good and what doesn't, but looking forward to hearing some other input on it.
Good. Sean, you go next.
All right. So yeah, ours is 7 bays. We do about 30 cars a week. There's 3 guys, including myself. We're a mentoring shop. So we bring in, these kids that are from this alternative school, foster home, good kids. We get to spend
awesome.
4 hours a day with them and stuff. So they help out, clean up and stuff. We work 5 days a week. We work 40 hours a week. What else is there? We got 5,000 square feet and we are growing. And I've been doing this in my 3rd year. My wife and I, we've been married. My wife and I have been together 30 years. We have 3 kids, 4 grandkids. Yeah. So my wife and I are partners in everything. So without her, I'd have really cool stuff, but I'd be poor. But that's just how that works. But yeah, I got in this business because I wanted to do things differently. And I felt that I could make a contribution, not being saddled with somebody else's nonsensical vision of leadership. So I just decided I'll do it myself and I'll figure out how to do it myself. And I'm a doer. So here we are.
Nice. All right, Kendall, how about you?
I've been in the automotive game for a decade. I grew up on an Omaha Indian reservation in northeast Nebraska, village of 90 with my father. There wasn't a lot of options back in Rosalie, Nebraska, other than turning wrenches. So fell in love with it. We see about 300 cars a month. Our car count is about between 300 and 350. We've got 3,200 square feet, 5 bays, super efficient. Our sales we always hover around 200K a month, between $200,000 and $250,000 a month in sales. But again, we do all makes, all models. We have the Porsche P3 software to the IDS DCM for Ford, with a ton of Autel scanners, but we've got 4 Master Techs and 1 GS. Well, we are busting at the seams. I've got a 3,200 square foot shop here in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, and we're just not able to do much more here. But again, super grateful. We've won the top from independent to dealers in that space, the shop award in the automotive space the last 2 years in Lincoln. Outrunning those dealerships, as you guys know, I'm super grateful for that.
Now, interestingly, are all 3 of you still turning wrenches, or are you completely? Kendall's not. Brian, the smile on your face that said that you are. So, and Sean, are you mentoring, or are you also fixing?
I'm at both.
Okay. All right. Kendall, how long has the shop been around?
I started it 10 years ago.
I'm sorry, what year?
2013.
Okay. All right. In year 3 or 4, I'm just curious, were you still turning wrenches?
Year 5. Still
year
turning.
5. Okay. All right. Sean and Brian, I just laid down the gauntlet for you as far as potential goals, as far as growth goals, maybe, who knows? But one of the things that I just heard as far as the commonality was what got you into ownership was potentially that you were unimpressed with how previous shops were being ran. And you had your own ideas. And so some of that's personality, right? Some of that's just some of that is. But what if that's one of the keys to retaining the top talent is to incorporate them in that decision-making and running process? What if it isn't just a top-down scenario? Anyone want to jump in on that? Thoughts either direction?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I think that it's super important to make your team feel like they're part of the business. I just started some coaching in July of last year and got super goal oriented because that seems to be the driving force at a lot of successful repair shops, is that their teams are part of the decisions that happen. So we'll sit down at the beginning of a quarter and say, what are our sales goals going to be? Just pick a dollar amount. And when people feel like they got to be part of making that decision, they work a lot harder towards achieving the goal. We hadn't set any goals really before that. We were just flying by the seat of our pants, taking all the repairs we could get. And now since we started goal setting, it's, my service writer, she's a rock star, just for the record. And
she's listening.
As soon as she got to set a goal or help set a goal, we hit that goal every month. She was a big part of that. So that's just a good example of letting your people be part of what you're doing. Helps them feel like they have extra value to you.
Kendall, while Brian was talking, I saw you nodding your head quite a bit. Do you want to jump into the idea of having them be a part of the management process?
Yeah, I think Brian hit a lot of really great points there. You have to have buy-in with your teams, whether you have 2 or 10 techs, whether you have 2 on the front end and 3 in the back end. They need to be a part of the decision making, and to the point where I had all of my team be a part of our core values, deciding on what our core values were going to be. 6 core values. I had a list of 50. So to the point where I have goal setting with both of my service managers once a month. Before the first of the month, we set our goals. We meet those goals. We have celebrations. They need to feel like they're part of something special. And those independent shops, that's some of the separator for me is, okay, we hit our goal. There's a gross profit bonus for the service manager. The guys are on flag rate. So if they hit their goals, the service managers are going to hit their goals. So they just need to feel like, hey, I'm a part of something. And that blends right into the retaining top talent too.
Yeah. The celebration, you mentioned celebration. What do you do?
No, it's steak dinners, or I go out and buy a bunch of ribeyes for the teams and hand them out. It really depends on what the team wants. I let them decide. But I'm even to the point where if we hit a week goal, I'll cater in food on a Friday. Now I will tell you all that we do work only half days on Fridays. So I let the team, we work 40 hours, but I stretched the Monday through Thursday, 7:30 to 5:30. And then we work a 7:30 to 11:30 on Fridays to get them out to their families. But again, we celebrate everything. We celebrate their birthdays, their kids' birthdays, give them half day off on their kids' birthdays. So it's a big deal celebrating.
My thing is that what I learned a long time ago was that you got to hire the right people first. And there's no need to retain talent if you didn't hire the right people. So I feel that our screening vetting process is we use the Wonderlic test. We go over this, and I go over the Wonderlic test with them. That way they can understand, because these guys or these gals need to understand their areas without it being critical. It's a test that you took that was an established standard, and we talk about it and understand what motivates each other. And as we go through the process, and like you said early on, letting somebody go in the early on process is also successful, right? If somebody passes probation, that's successful. If they don't pass probation, it's successful. That's what probation's for. So if you don't see what you need to see out of those 30 days, you're not going to see it out of 60, 90, or 100. And we've all had those employees we've hung on to too long. But I guess it gets back to, if you bring in the right people, which we've all made mistakes, but then the thing is being an example. The big problem we see is, and I hear a lot about goals, and I hear a lot about, but I don't see a lot about demonstrated action of leadership, of people showing up, showing these guys how to work efficiently, showing up on time, being clear-headed. These things are the things that these young folks, they just haven't had in their lives. So we're at the age now where we got to start leading these young men like men, and they need to start acting like it. And that means you got to hold them accountable. And when you start holding them accountable, the good people will stick around, and it will weed out the other ones. So how do you retain good people? By being an example of what you're looking for. But the other thing is also treating them and allowing them to be smart, allowing them to be good people without managing their every move. Because if you let the good people you've hired actually work the way they need to work, they are part of the solution, right? So that's just how I approach it. And it's taking longer because you could hire, I've looked at this all kinds of different ways. You could hire people, ATEX, bring them in and slam numbers, right? Okay. But who's happy? Who learned anything, right? The ATEX slams stuff out the door. He's a cuss. Every time you talk to him, he's angry. But he has nothing nice to say. And every part that comes back is a defect. He's never screwed up, and nobody around him can do anything. Who wants to work with that? Well, yeah, he can slam numbers out, but nobody's learning from him. Nobody's growing. My pocketbook's growing, but our team isn't. So as soon as this guy gets tired and leaves, now we're all hung out to dry again.
You mentioned about setting expectations and whatnot. So are you also doing like a career path for them? Are you actually mapping out? How far out can you go?
And we talk about goals. We talk about short-term, long-term goals. We talk about, because we have daily meetings and we are involved in the process. Every minute's a coaching opportunity at our shop. Everybody who talks to me, everything's a lesson. It has to be, because you're the leader of the show. And like Kendall said, at year 5, I won't be turning wrenches, but right now I got to build the culture of my core team in order to get to where Kendall's at. Makes sense.
No, absolutely. We're talking about making sure we've got the right people to start.
Yep.
We're talking about making sure that we have the correct, that they're a part of the goal setting process, and not just for the shop, but also for themselves, right? To set that career path and then celebrate all those different milestones. What other topics, what other ideas can we talk about when it comes to keeping our best talent happy?
Making sure they're working on the right things, making sure that you're involved with understanding what they're learning and how they're learning it, and making sure that you have a format by which these people are able to learn. But it's not a one size fits all. The issue that I see out there right now in getting good people in the door is you see a lot of these folks with the ability, they just don't have the exposure. They didn't grow up in the woods riding snowmobiles and doing all the stuff we did, but they still have the talent. They have the wherewithal. We just need to give them the exposure. So with the right exposure, these people flourish. How do you throw a young person, 26, 27 years old, got 2 kids, solid person, will show up every single day, has a solid work ethic, good credit score, all this other stuff. How do you get them in the door? If you make them flat rate, they can't work there because they'll starve to death. So you come up with a way and a career path to get them in hourly and figure out how to get this person to grow. And
so you compensate hourly. Do I have that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Brian and Kendall, are you also doing hourly, or are you doing other pay structures?
Yeah, so we do, dependent on the technician, because not everybody's, like Sean said, not everybody can flag enough hours to make a paycheck to be on commission. So we do a couple of our guys are on a base plus an hourly commission if they hit a certain number of hours. And I got one of my guys is just on hourly. So just really depends on the person and what their abilities are.
Yeah, Brian, I think we can all, we all have the same vision in that space. I had a GS that started a year and a half ago on hourly. And then as soon as he learned enough from the master techs, I set him down and we flipped him to flat rate. So but again, we have such a small shop, and it sounds like Sean is size-wise similar to mine. We don't, in this current location, which is about to change here soon, we don't have the flexibility or the square footage to be able to bring in additional talent to train at this point. But again, I think we can all agree there's a couple different ways we can approach that, and whether it's hourly until you hit, Brian said, 35 hours, and then then the escalator kicks in, or whatever pay structure you have. There's a couple different ways to do that, but right now in this building, they're all on flat rate.
All right. But there's also bonuses if they hit certain benchmarks as far as the shop goals go. You guys, does everybody do that? Sean, do you also have bonuses if the shop does well, not just them?
Of course. Yep. So then it goes on a percentage rate. We just have had a hard time maintaining. We're still in a learning phase. So being very consistent, we haven't been consistent in our numbers. So that's something that we've been really working on. To say that somebody can consistently make a bonus, you got to consistently perform. And we got areas we need severe improvement, but we're working on it. We'll get there.
And we all have areas where we need higher levels of improvement.
But how many days a week do we think we're great? We're perfect? 0. I think there's so much to learn out there. I have all of my texts. 3 of them are set at, if they hit their bogey of 90 hours, then their escalator, I have a $5 per hour escalator. So they're chasing that, or they're hunting that thing. They're hunting down 90 hours every 2 weeks. My other guy is hunting down 115 hours, and he blasts through 115. Last pay period, he had 142 in 2 weeks, flagged hours. So again, paying them really well, and that's part of the retaining top talent, right? If you're not going to pay those guys, the person right down the street in all of our respective areas are going to pay those guys.
But it's not just about, is it just about the pay? Is that that's the answer?
No, it's culture. From my perspective, it's employee feedback. It's helping with decision making. It's helping with understanding what our shop needs are. I have a quarterly every quarter meeting. I do a quarterly meeting, a biannual meeting, and then obviously, and I lay all of that stuff out. I have an agenda, and I'd be happy to share with you guys. And if you have one, no worries. But we go through and we do vision. I do vision boards, personal vision boards with my techs. What's important to them? What is their goals personally? Do they want to take their kids to Disney this year? Do they want to buy a camper? Are they in a position to buy their first home? Are they going to buy their wife a new vehicle? All of that stuff. From my perspective, money is, and again, I think we can all answer this a little bit differently. Money's probably in third place for us.
Yeah, I'd say money's in third place for us too. We're pretty focused on making sure that everybody on our team has everything. We'll help them with the things outside of work because those are more important than what they have at work. So
are they happy? Are they genuinely happy? And if, how can we get the best versions of them out of themselves? Help them get the best versions out of themselves. And that, from my perspective, is being a great father and a great husband, a great friend. That's where I try to pull the best out of all of my team here. And that, from my perspective, I haven't had anybody in the last 5 years leave. And when I tell you this is a sardine, I'll tell you it's a sardine. So it's just a small shop. If you can create a culture that they know that we certainly care about them, we truly care, not smoke and mirrors. And we're all old enough to understand who tells us, hey, I really care about you, but they really don't care about you. They're not asking the right question. They're not asking how your kids are doing. They're not asking how your weekend was. But I do that and take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. The idea that you're actually mapping out what their personal goals are and what's going on in their family life and being compassionate with that piece of it. That's fascinating.
We do.
You mentioned the 5 year.
Yeah.
No one's left in the last 5. That's also, I think that's impressive. What do you guys think? Sean, Brian, do you think 5 years is a good benchmark? Do you have some people there? You guys have been around for 3 or for around 5. Anyway, have you had anybody from the start?
No, I've changed over everybody just because as I've learned and evolved and as the business has changed and the needs have changed and people have needed to change and they haven't fit. But we are very clear with our employees, this isn't working or something needs to change and stuff like that. So we're very upfront about it. But yeah, it's just interesting though, because people will leave for money. And it's funny how you'll get these guys that will come around and they'll say, yeah, I'm a master of this. And if you pay me $42 an hour, I'll come work in here. Everybody's, that's awesome. If he was all that, why is he traveling around town looking for a job, right? There's a lot of baggage that comes with that. And that's what I'm finding is a lot of times you'll get some of these guys, boy, the baggage it's so hectic, boy. It's just, you can't. And it was the same thing in the factories though. When you get very qualified techs, they work on equipment, refrigeration and stuff like that. Sometimes the really good ones, well, their home lives weren't very good. So they didn't show up all the time. So you were better off training somebody who didn't have all the base skills, but you could count on him being there every day to take care of this. They're like, this guy's a superstar, but he's only here 3 days a week. Well, that doesn't do us any good. So that's what I found with some of these guys that come in that feel that are top talent.
Yeah, because I would say to that, Sean, one of the things that I've come to realize is we always want to help everybody just be better. If we're helping them get their stuff sorted outside of work, then they perform better at work. But there are people who don't want you to help them.
Oh, yeah.
So that's been a recent realization for me and a hard one. I lost who I would call my best performer a couple of months ago, and he's been with me. He was with me at my second shop that we closed up. And so he's been with me since 2009, working with me, whether I was here or at another place. But he seemed like one of those people that no matter how much I wanted to help him be better outside of work, he just didn't want to take help. Money wasn't a driver for him. It didn't matter how much I paid him. He decided to go.
Interesting. I was about to ask before that story, I was thinking that when somebody doesn't want your help or doesn't want to share their personal goals with you, do you then fire that person or encourage them to leave? And based on Brian's story, it sounds like it naturally happens.
It does.
Okay.
You can only hide crazy for so long. Come on. You just can't. It just comes out. So at some point, somebody can show up and in 15 days, they're just like, wow. And then the 16th day, you're like, what the? Yeah.
Different person. Yeah, for sure. I tell you what, I don't allow those guys to not give me an opportunity to help them correct their challenges. I had a gentleman that was really pretty miserable with his being overweight. And like Brian said, they push back and they push back and they push back. But I just kept coming at him, and I kept coming at him respectfully in the right way and dabbling in terms of, hey, let me help you. And I finally got him to allow me to buy him a membership at a gym. And that was 18 months ago. And he's down 60 pounds and he's a different person, pretty persistent person. And from me, but if you allow me a little bit of a window, a little bit, crack that door a little bit, I'm coming through it, because I want to help you be the best version of yourself. And now I can unequivocally say that Rick is the best version of himself today. Now, again, it may be an anomaly in our space, but if they allow me to help them be the best versions of themselves, I'm going to get after them respectfully.
Yeah. And so, Kendall, when you help that guy with that gym membership and lose that weight, like, how did that affect his performance at work?
Yeah, and that's the guy that flipped from a hourly to a flat rate, and now he's hitting 90 hours every 2 weeks pretty consistently. And to be honest with you guys, my shop is so small. He's working on a scissor lift, because that's the only, and we literally drive over the scissor lift to get into our other spot because the building was 70 years old. Let me put that into perspective. His life is better. He's happier. And again, we've all been in that space that in life that something has bothered us, whether we just haven't gotten to the gym or mentally we're just a little bit unclear, or we're having challenges outside of work, whether it's family issues, whatever. But he's a different person. He comes to work. He's happy. He's engaged. He's not grouchy. He helps. So again, I feel like Rick is the best version of himself today.
Nice. That's a great story. I really appreciate that. My wheels are turning too. And I'm glad to hear that that pay is third on the list, right? That culture and goal sharing and whatnot is top of mind. But we keep using the word culture. And that's a common word. We hear that all the time as far as you got to have the right culture. You got to have the right culture. If you had to describe your culture in a couple words, how would you describe it and be specific and use the parts that actually play into retaining that top talent? So we talked about goal setting, but is there something else? Can we define culture a little bit better?
Well, I'll certainly go first, gentlemen. Caring for others, empathy, from my perspective, is caring and empathy and giving back. And that's 3 of our 6 core values. And it blends into everybody that works for us. And again, I'm certainly a small fish in this automotive space pond, but we give back to the community. We choose elementary schools that are in the lower end of the economic scale in Lincoln, Nebraska, and we help pay those school lunch debts off. So that's something that we do as a group, and we know, okay, we're gonna make a positive influence in the community. And those guys they just love that. We've given away cars for Chariots for Hope here in Lincoln. We've given away a few vehicles over the last few years. So they enjoy being a part of that. They feel like they're part of something special. And culture, that's a key part of our culture, is giving back to the community. They appreciate that. It makes them feel good about why they work for us, why they work as a part of our team here. And giving back to the community, being empathetic, and that blends and lends to a great culture for us.
Okay.
That's one of the things as we go through the learning process too, as these guys are learning and growing, we got to remain positive. We got to understand we're planting seeds, right? That we weren't all stars and we're not all stars now. But the point is that you got to remain positive and understand that we're building a team here that long term, this isn't a short term thing. And these folks have the wherewithal. They just don't have the experience, and you can't buy experience. So you got to have a culture of learning. You got to have a culture of problem solving. You can't have a culture of laying blame. You can't have a culture of sitting on your hands and going, every time I do something, it's wrong. If you don't have the attitude of, I'm going to keep swinging, then you're in the wrong line of work. But the culture has to be whatever your leadership style is, right? Whatever leadership style attracts the right people to help you carry out your vision. But you got to have the right people. And that culture, my culture isn't for everybody. I've had people come in here and they think I'm insane. And whatever, they're probably right. But we don't fit. And that's okay. There's a couple 100 million people. I'm not going to fit in with everybody, and you probably shouldn't. But my point is that you just, as you're doing this, though, you got to remain positive, and you got to remember that you're building this team and you're trying to build this person up to be an independent self-starter, take initiative, be disciplined. And that takes time and effort, and that's an everyday thing. But yeah, the culture has to fit your leadership style.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, Brian, we talked about this before the show went live about hustle being part of your attitude. How has that played into the shop culture?
I would say, so first off, our culture in our shop really is about helping everybody feel like they're part of our family. Family is super important for me. So part of that is helping people be comfortable in their job, giving them the tools to do the job correctly. But also upbringing for me and my family was you do things right. You do them right the first time. So like the things that I talked about with doing right is I treat everybody like they're my kids, but in a way that I can help guide them to going to work on time is super important for lots of reasons. And like I said, doing the right thing the first time. But yeah, so the hustle part of things for me is just, we always keep going, right? We can't stop. We got to keep doing work. We got to keep coming. We got to show up every day, put in the work. On the bad days that are not super productive, or somebody has a bad day at work, we all just got to keep going, because if somebody stops, that drag us all down. So,
yeah. So we talked about what's working, what we're doing. What did we try that completely blew up? Who wants to go first?
Not a hit.
Repeat that question. What did we try that completely blew up?
Yeah, so what did you try when you were trying to retain top talent? The strategy that you tried to do, or a relationship that you tried to work that was completely just awful? That just like, I won't do that again. I've learned from this experience, and I'm not going to do that again.
Well, I apply what's happened to me in the corporate world, sitting down, being reviewed by somebody from across the country who's only seen me twice, telling me how I need to personally and professionally grow and stuff, and how that incentive and how I should be happy that he's helping me. He doesn't know my name, couldn't spell it if he had to, but yet this is my leadership. So I guess my point, what is my point? But I guess what I'm saying is learn that motivating people, you bring in these people who are all-stars and you lay out this groundwork for them. At some point, there's not enough shiny gold at the end of the rainbow to keep them interested, right? Because some of these top people, they feel like they should be running their own business, or they should be going out doing this other stuff. And that employee is very difficult to hold on to. And I've tried doing that, and it's blown up in my face, because you're like, okay, we're going to give them a raise. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Okay. They're holding us hostage. We're going to do all these things. And all of a sudden they ended up quitting anyway. And everybody around watched what you did to try to keep this person happy, to keep them on the team and all this other stuff. And they all knew they were going to leave anyway. I was the only one that didn't know they were going to leave. The rest of the team knew they were going to leave. But so I've learned from that. So when I came into this business, I handle things with people straight up. We just sit down. Hey, what are you looking for? If my style and what we're doing doesn't fit your goals, then it's not a fit. That's okay. Yeah. Goals and all that stuff are great, and having all that stuff is awesome. But the being real, what I see out here is these folks need somebody that's going to be honest with them. Here's what you need to do. We've got some guys that have some financial issues. And they're like, I need to make more money. And I'm like, it's not a money, it's a spending issue. We can't go to Chipotle every night. We can't drink Monsters and smoke cigarettes and spend $22 on nonsense a day. You work the first hour of the day just to cover your what?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So what I just heard though was that what doesn't work is trying to retain anybody. Like you be aware of whether or not they're a fit long term in your culture, in your shop, on your team. And because you probably slighted the people who were watching you work so hard for that person. Wait a minute, why isn't he working so hard to retain me? Right. So they probably offer themselves slighted at the same time. And yeah. So it's so overdoing it to think that your superstar is everything is a giant mistake. That sounds like that message should be heard not just by auto repair shops, but maybe some major league sports teams as well. But anyway, Brian, you said not it. You didn't want to go first. Now that you didn't go first, do you have any thoughts you want to share of what doesn't work?
I would say the same thing as Sean. You can't make somebody want to stay by just, I'm going to do this for you. Let's put you on this instead. Because they were probably already going to leave. And
right. Yeah.
I like hearing that Sean is just very matter of fact with people. This is what it is. My personality is not like that. I'm a people pleaser. People would probably call me a yes man because I have a hard time telling people no when they ask for something from me. But I historically have always done everything I could do to keep people happy and keep them around because I thought it's easier to just keep everybody than to have to go and replace somebody.
Brian, that was actually a great segue because you just mentioned something that you heard Sean is doing and doing well. And you said, okay, maybe I can apply a little bit of that over here. That's great. That's one of my hopes for this type of discussion.
Well, don't get me wrong, Brian. I get taken advantage of too plenty. And that's why I had to set boundaries and everything else because my wife would tell me, she'd see like, how could you be such a disciplinarian with the kids and then these guys walk all over you? And it's the same thing. You want to keep these guys happy, right? But you're also the guys who are doing what they're supposed to do. They understand. And those are the guys you want around. And you have to set boundaries with people. And it's hard because I'm in this business because I want to help people. I don't want to tell people no, but sometimes you just have to tell them no. And it sucks, but for your own sanity, you have to.
Yeah, good. I don't want to wrap up too early, but I do want to make sure that we're all closing with our final thoughts of other things that we've listened to and heard that maybe we'll be applying or other ideas we want to share around. It's expanded to culture, but the reality is we're still talking about retaining the right fit, not necessarily the top talent, but the right fit talent. Kendall, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think all of us in our respective areas understand how hard it is to retain top talent or how difficult it is to replace top talent. But from my perspective, I've been doing those vision boards with our team for the last 3 years. And I get them in a conference room. We rent out a small conference room. We cater food in, and I have them go through their top 5 personal goals. And all the time, gentlemen, and I've got pictures. I want to be a better father. I want to be a better husband. I want to buy a bigger house. And then I start helping them. I read a ton of books. So I'm giving them books recommendations. And that has been, if whatever success means to all of us, that's success to me, is helping them be a better version of themselves, especially those top 2, being a better father, being a better husband. And that typically, for me, it always equates to them being a better team member.
All right, good. You mentioned before about willingness to share your vision board templates with the other 2 on the panel. Yeah. Would you mind sharing it inside the Facebook group that we've got?
Yeah. Send me that.
I'll do that.
Hang me on that, Brad.
Yeah. So I will. I'll make sure that you're all already included, but it's for auto repair shop owners on Facebook. And my hope for the next couple of weeks is that we'll actually be continuing to talk about this topic in that space. And so,
and I'll drop in my agenda for our meetings too. And you guys can file 13 it, or if somebody in that group says, holy cow, that's a good idea, they're sure welcome to have it.
That's great. Do you guys, Brian and Sean, do you also have like an outline that you use for? Not yet?
I don't. No, it would be nice to see one.
Okay.
I'll drop it in there, brother.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, and I like what Kendall's doing, and at some point we're going to have to go that way, but I'm still getting a taste of the corporate world out of my mouth. So the idea of meetings and vision boards and that whole vocabulary, I'm just trying to stay away from right now, but we got to get there. It is a good idea. No, and visual things for guys is important, but it's hard for Sean because like my wife comes back and HRs me sometimes that we need to do this. And I'm like, corporate.
Yeah. I also had background in corporate, and it was a long time ago, but then, yes, I remember, I actually remember the movie Office Space. I watched it over a weekend, and no joke, the following Monday, I actually had 4 different bosses complain to me about my sales report that the formatting in my Excel spreadsheet was wrong. And I'm like, is this actually happening to me? Did they know that I watched this? Or I don't, this was pre-social media, right? It's not like they were following me around. But anyway.
Were their names Bob? And they bring up the memo.
No. Well, I stayed in touch with them after I left that company because they once we worked boss, employee, we were better friends, right? So it was because the relationship dynamic was different. But anyway, nope, they weren't. It doesn't matter. Anyway, okay, this has been great. I really appreciate the time. And like I said, I want to continue the conversation inside the message group. You're more than welcome to, I could share each of your contact information with each other if you actually want to reach out to each other directly.
Yep.
Any final thoughts or questions that you want to throw out before we wrap up here?
No, I'm
Sean, both okay. You guys and Sean, Brian, if I can do anything, if you think I've got any information that will help either of you, please reach out, please.
Yeah. Let's extend that idea of caring beyond our own shop. That's great. That's perfect.
Sure. Yeah. And if you guys are ever out this way, we're in northern Colorado, so swing through, and I go through Lincoln, Nebraska. We're heading towards Wisconsin, so I might stop in one day. So
stop in, brother. Be happy to show you around, man.
Nice.
That'd be cool.
Nice. Sorry, Brian, we don't go through Iowa too often.
That's okay. If you look at the map, I'm in the top left corner of Iowa. So if you're in the top left corner of Iowa, pop in.
We're stopping in.
You're like Sioux City and all that stuff.
So we're east of Sioux City. Right away.
It smells nice up there. Real nice.
Sioux City smells interesting.
Yeah. I think we all know the other term from Sioux City. I don't think we have better share it here, but I've been through Sioux City quite often, so I think we're all on the same page there.
Yes.
All right, very, very good. All right, guys, thanks for joining us today, and we'll hopefully stay in touch. Thank you again.
Yes.
Well, have a great afternoon. Take care.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
Bye-bye.